excellent day for an August.
You'd like that?
Are you fucking nuts?
Pray to your God. I want you to pray that he comes and saves you.
Do I look like someone who cares what God thinks?
Welcome, horror fiends, to our little show titled What an Excellent Day for a Podcast. We appreciate each and every one of you for taking the time out of your busy schedules to give us a listen. Round the horn, as always, are my fellow horror nerds, Danny C.
Hey everybody, this is Danny C. And it's been 2 full years since we first started What an Excellent Day for a Podcast. And I can't believe how much time flies. It's pretty remarkable where we've come from to start. I feel like Dave and I were just meeting at a bar one evening, having a conversation about possibly doing a horror podcast, and didn't think anything of it until a few months down the line that JC and Joe T, who also had the same love for horror, would imagine doing a podcast with us. But he took a chance, and something with one mic on a table in a basement has now turned into something that's pretty remarkable. To have a love for the horror genre with a great group of guys is something that means a lot to me, and I enjoy every time we get together and we message each other and we talk smack, but we all have the same love, we all have the same goals, and I can't wait for what the future holds for us. I don't think I would have ever imagined where we would be at today if, I don't know. I feel like I never thought we would have interviews with celebrities on an ongoing basis, and shout out to the team getting involved and kind of driving that, and people that we see on screen all the time and we watch, we admire, we look up to, and we have a love for. To take that opportunity and interview them is pretty amazing in itself. I know it kind of breaks us out of our normal path of what we do from day to day, and it helps. I know this team's been through a lot over the last 2 years as we've grown and tried to make something out of nothing, but really appreciate all the listeners that give us the opportunity to be ourselves and be thankful for just talking horror shit. I appreciate my family being patient with me at times, and especially my wife catering to us on a weekly basis into our now studio setup. But I wouldn't pick any other guys to do a horror podcast with than the group we have today. I enjoy our times of laughing, joking, karaoke. It's a great getaway to be ourselves and show that to other people that are listening. And, for our listeners out there, if you have dreams that you want to achieve, you can do it. You can be yourself and get out there and, show your love for the industry. I don't know where I'm going with this, but I really can't wait for what the future holds and what we foresee, I should say, on the incoming, and things like hanging out at Friday the 13th on Friday the 13th up in Blairstown, doing live stuff with fans of horror. Would love to meet listeners of the show, collaborate with other people that are out there that have the same love as we do. I love our March Madness brackets that we have, and I think they're really fun. And hope this family continues to make greatness out of once was nothing. Yeah. I don't know what really else to say, but thank you to all our listeners for supporting us, for following us, whether it's through Apple, Spotify, YouTube, following us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, or X. I can't wait for what other celebrities want to come on our show that we get to interview. I know we have a lot of fun things down the line that we're going to venture into, so I really can't wait.
Joe T.
This is Joe T. from What an Excellent Day for a Podcast, and we're here. It's our 2-year anniversary, and I wanted to look back and remember some of the moments throughout, and especially, it started with an idea. I work with JC and Danny C, and, I told them stories of how I tried to get in on a podcast in the past, and we kind of bonded through horror, and eventually talks, Danny C's cousin Dave, and he had another show going, and we finally, thought about an idea, maybe sitting down and just recording, like talking about horror, simple. We went with our top 5 horror movies. And, we met up one night, and JC had this almost globe microphone. And we just put it in the middle of a table. And, we just turned it on and then started talking. And, that ended up being the show that we released on our 1-year anniversary last year. And it was good to look back because we had grown over the first year. And sound quality, audio, throughout the time, invested in better mics, sound quality. I mean, Danny C basically converted a part of his house into our studio. And, throughout that time, we developed a close bond. And, we're there, we always have a group chat going, and if ever anyone needs to talk, when family issues arise, family emergencies, or just shooting the shit and sending, random memes. And, as time went on, and I always, I listen to a lot of podcasts, and I never really go back and re-listen to shows. But for some reason, I feel like the quality we have and the chemistry, I like going back and listening to some of our shows. And, I feel like we got a good blend. We got quick-witted sense of humor, some dark humor at times. And it's really good to listen to. And as, we did more shows, and I feel like we really picked up steam. And, the thought of potentially trying to get interviews, because, we started going to some horror conventions together, and, we would go up to people, get their autograph, take a picture. And, I had the thought of maybe asking, like, what's the worst that can happen? Someone's going to say no. And, I reached out, and eventually we landed one, with Fiona Dourif. And that one, throughout our podcast history will always be special. I had to wait until she got home, to Portugal. So the time difference, it ended up being I was going to be the only one available that day to do it, with work and different family commitments and stuff like that. And sadly, I should have done a little more research, and, that one never ended up recording. And I had put so much pressure on myself because I thought, this is our shot. Because I've always seen the potential we had. And I feel like we can do big things. And, we started from the ground up. We weren't in the industry beforehand. We didn't have a built-in following. Like I said, it was 4 guys around one table with one mic. And, just looking back on this year alone, and in the past 6 months, the amount of people we've had. And, I could give thanks, to the Levy brothers, David Howard Thornton, Felissa Rose, Danielle Harris, Dee Wallace, and the names, and it's just continue to go. We have more lined up and very special things, on the horizon. And I'll always give a shout out to Josh Zaharia. He had a breakout role in Lowlifes, a Tubi original this year, and he ended up being our official first interview. And we even had technical difficulties that night, and we didn't know if it was going to go off. So we just started doing our review for the movie. And then he sent me a message back, and we ended up stopping our review mid-review to do the interview. And it ended up working out, sound quality, everything. And, you know, that one will always be special as well. And, you know, I don't even know. You know, we've had ideas to potentially, you know, go and be a vendor to try to get our name out. And we always look. And thankfully, you know, with David Howard Thornton, he posted our interview with him on his Facebook page. And that's easily been our highest video of all time. And, you know, the one cool thing I would say is these guys don't have to give us their time. And they do. And it means a lot to us. And we try, with the little bit of following we have, to try to help as much as we can. And our downloads from that interview with David Howard Thornton, our downloads, we quadrupled our numbers. And that's why, you know, next month on Friday the 13th, we're going to do our first live show. And it's almost weird that Danielle Harris asked us in her interview if we've ever done a live show, because her and Scout were doing one at a recent convention and had audio difficulties. And, you know, we visited Blairstown, New Jersey a couple weeks ago to just, you know, be fans, but, you know, respect the horror history of the town, what it did for the original Friday the 13th. And we're going to be there December 13th in Blairstown on the street where the original movie opens up, doing our first live show. And, you know, it's crazy how much we've grown. And like I've said before, the sky's the limit. And hopefully you guys follow us for the ride. We out.
David?
Yeah, man, 2 fucking years. As I've said plenty of times over multiple episodes and just out in the real world. Like, who'd have thought? Just 4 assholes from Jersey, and we'd still be going. I remember back being like 10, 15 years old and behind the elders' backs, corrupting little Danny, throwing him little sneak peeks of horror clips, especially Return of the Living Dead. Probably the second one more so, just because that leaned more into the comedy. But yeah, the whole screwdriver scene, I just remember looping that over and over, and the two of us cracking up. And then throughout our whole lives, like, no matter what drama was going on inside the family, like, we just always had that bond. And if nothing else, we always had inappropriate humor and horror movies to talk about. Then you fast forward, you know, life gets in the way a little bit. We go off to start our own families and whatnot. And no matter what, we kept in touch. You know, we were always still pretty close. And then back in 2021, I met up with some people and we started Cryptic Souls podcast. And it was just a great time. Actually, I miss those guys, and hoping we can get our schedules situated again, that we can get that ball rolling as well. But every time I'd run into Danny, he'd be asking me, "Oh, how's that podcast thing going?" Yeah, and I'd tell him, like, yeah, it's a good time. And he would always be asking how it worked, and I told him, I said, it's, you know how we could sit in a room and talk movies? Turn on a microphone, boom, you're done. And he always mentioned how he knew a couple guys from work that were, like, really into horror. One of them was obsessive and getting full sleeve tattoos of just horror. And I kept telling him, like, yeah, let's go. And then, you know, we'd both have a chuckle and, you know, go about our lives. And then one day, it was probably like early to mid-November in 2022, we had arrangements to go out and grab a bite to eat, grab a few drinks, and as we were sitting there talking, he brought up again, like, how's that podcast thing going? I'm like, fucking awesome, dude. It's a good time. And he started asking about, like, the technical end of it, and I told him it's you know, relatively easy as far as just to pull it off. And he kept bringing up again, like, these guys from work, and they've had some buzz amongst them about getting something started. And I was like, yeah, like, fuck yeah. He's like, would you be interested in doing another one? I'll do 5 of them. I got no life. So we went about our merry ways, and yeah, within like a week, he's like, I talked to the guys at work, and how about we meet up at my house on such and such day? And we did. And it was just to sit down, have a meeting, see how we clicked and all that. And then in the midst of it all, I believe it was JC, just dropped a microphone in the middle of the table, plugged it into Danny's laptop, and we were off. So pretty much from that night, and it was never intended for release or anything, but we turned around and ended up putting it out as our 1-year special episode. But yeah, we made some arrangements, and I think we were shooting for like an every other week schedule. And yeah, we would just throw out a topic, a movie, whatever, and just get together and shoot the shit with mics turned on. And I particularly was amused by the whole idea of, in a lot of ways, we are very different. Obviously, we have other commonality besides just this genre of cinema. But yeah, for the most part, we have very, very different takes. Obviously, we have all different tastes. But it was all just different enough to make it work. So yeah, we kept going. Managed to keep somewhat of a, I don't know about strict, but a fairly consistent, like every other week schedule. And even though I think we all wanted more, like obviously, you know, we have responsibilities and shit like that. But it was something. And then in May, the shit hit the fan. I ended up having to cancel our recording that week because I got a call that my son was being rushed to the ER. Fast forward 2 weeks, and well, if you go back and listen to the real life horror segments or whatever you want to call it, but yeah, and from there, you know, obviously that momentum kind of came to a crash. And I guess when, I don't know, we got into a system with him, I reached out to the guys, asked if they were still looking to get the band back together. At that point, it was what, probably like, I don't know, 4 to 6 months. We didn't do shit. I felt bad too, because again, we all had some momentum going, but I guess with me having assumed production duties, it kind of fucked those guys over, and that's something that's always bugged me. But yeah, I reached out and was like, hey, you guys looking to keep going? And they more or less said, hey, yes. We just didn't want to, you know, be insensitive and bother you about it. And I was like, oh no, fuck man. Like, let's do this. I could use the distraction. So we started whittling away right around our first year and getting some more shit going just in time for basically my whole life to come to an end in December, which is something I actually to this day, I don't know if it's something I'm ever going to fully recover from. Yeah, when a month or two passed from that, I started pushing again. I'm like, guys, we got to do something. And, you know, they basically said, like, if you're down for it, like, yeah, let's go. But if you're not, like, fuck, man, like, don't push yourself. I said, nah, I think I need this. And then once we started up again, somehow it fell into, you know, working into a weekly release schedule like we have now. I don't know how, but yeah, I guess the stars aligned, and, you know, we've been managing to get out something every Monday, and the whole thing just kind of works out. Like, not to be more doom and gloom, but I've basically told everyone, because we have our prep, we have our recordings, and then, like I said, I kind of jump in behind the scenes to put the episodes together, and despite everyone offering, you know, to share those responsibilities, and a lot of times making decisions, thinking, you know, let's not like dominate his entire life with this kind of shit. And I told him, like, this right now, this is like the one distraction I have that's been consistently keeping the demons at bay. Because I would always joke, like, yeah, you don't want to be in my head. Well, yeah, now more than ever. And it's shit like this that's, yeah, been keeping those thoughts at bay. But anyhow, so we got this regular schedule, and funny enough, our numbers started picking up. I was a little nervous thinking that what followers we did have in the beginning, by taking essentially 9-10 months off because of me, it was just going to bring everything to a crash. But yeah, shit, man, we hit a milestone in March, and I was pretty fucking excited. And then Danny made the joke, oh, we should go by our 2 years. And yeah, we quadrupled those expectations. I thought he was fucking joking, but so yeah, shit's really blown up. I'm sure these interviews we've been getting, I mean, we've just been grateful to have those, to have an opportunity to talk to these people, and you know, it really seems to be boosting our numbers as well. So it's even more of a win-win. But yeah, we got some big things planned. We're gonna put out a formal announcement a little later today. But we have our anniversary proper celebration coming up in a few weeks. And I just want to thank just everybody fucking involved. Even the trolls. Of course, I want to thank my brothers in nerddom for being part of this and, you know, just making it fun again. Obviously want to thank all the listeners. Anyone out there who's actually spreading the word, getting more people to know about us, like, we fucking appreciate that. Obviously, all the people who have taken the time to come on and chat with us, and to everyone listening and who's been following us all this time, who hopefully intend to continue listening to us. Yeah, as always, give us a shout out. Let us know what else you want to hear from us. I mean, between the four of us, we always have ideas. We're spitballing back and forth, but it's always great to hear what someone out there listening would like to hear our take on. Obviously, the more Blumhousey, the better. And anyone out there interested in joining us for an episode, hey, the more the merrier. But thanks to all of our listeners, all the people that have come on for interviews. Again, my brothers in nerddom, our friends and family that have been putting up with our asses as we've been trying to build this into something wonderful. And not to forget a very special shout out to the newly married Two-Eyed Kevin, who's kind of been our hype man, yet biggest critic for quite some time now, who we're looking to get on the show a little more often, because that fucking man's an encyclopedia when it comes to this shit. So yes, thank you everyone. Here's to many more years. Let's keep this shit going. Forever and ever and ever. Toodles.
And I am JC. What is up, fellow horror fiends? JC here from What an Excellent Day for a Podcast. I wanted to take a moment on this damp and cold Saturday morning to give two well-deserved shout-outs. The first will always go to our listeners. So much great horror content out there to enjoy. If you take the time to hit play on any one of our shows, know that this horror nerd appreciates you for doing so. Life's schedule demands so much from all of us, so the fact that you are willing to devote some of that schedule to listen to our show, that's pretty fucking cool, and it means so much to me. Like I say in every intro I do, know that we appreciate you. The second is a shout out to my fellow horror nerds. This weekend marks the 2-year anniversary of our show. Congrats! Crazy to think it's been 2 years already, and so fucking cool to see how we have evolved over that time. Along the way, we have been so fortunate to have met and mingled with some amazing horror celebs and icons that have taken the time to come on the show and cut it up with us. As a lifelong horror fan, being able to talk with these talented individuals whose movies have terrified me from childhood to present day, always fucking blessed and appreciative for this show that allows me that opportunity. So whether us nerds are cutting it up with guests, going on rants, squirreling down the rabbit hole of the multiverse, if you know, you know, or just breaking out in some karaoke for no apparent fucking reason at all, this 80s horror nerd appreciates it all and looks forward to all the exciting, cool shit we have in store for our listeners moving forward. Happy anniversary, what an excellent day for a podcast. Now let's continue to talk some damn horror, shall we? For years to come. Stay creepy, be well, peace out.
Listening to What an Excellent Day for a Podcast, where we use the number 4 to save you time. Check out our entire catalog at excellentdayforapodcast.com. Also on Spotify, Apple, Amazon, Audible, and everywhere else you listen to podcasts. Have a question? Email us at excellentdayforapodcast@gmail.com.
But guys, I want to interact on social media.
Excellent.
Dude, we did there.
Follow us on Twitter at ExcellentDay4A. Otherwise, search for What an Excellent Day for a Podcast to get our Facebook page, our group page, Instagram, YouTube, and our newly launched Twitch channel. Come say hello, share them all,